Hello everyone. This is Grandmaster Arturs Neiksans, and I'm back with my weekly GM Neiksans bootcamp. Yeah, so it's started to become pretty much a tradition once a week to devote my time for a specific show. Since every Wednesday I'm doing shows for puzzle battles and puzzle solving. Fridays is thank you Alberto Romero. Yeah, hi Alberto, I remember you. You're from my stream with Ruslan Ponomaryov. Yeah, hi guys. Of course, I'm very happy that you're here. Yeah, so what I said, I mean, every Friday I will try to do some master classes for the English audience. Right, and I do not remember if all of you were there last week when I was doing my masterclass for the Sicilian Rossolimo. I was showing my analysis, how I recommend to play for the white player. And one of the ideas which occurred last week was that I could show you how to treat the yeah, I think I did. Yeah, Alberto, you're right. Maybe I uploaded because I upload all of my videos after the streaming sessions. I upload them directly to YouTube so that they don't get expired after some time. I mean, Twitch has this. Yeah, it's new camera confirmed. Yeah, hi Miro. Yeah, very happy that Yevgeny Miroshnichenko is here with us. The camera is confirmed. I can actually switch you to the big cam. You can see. Wow, you can see everything. Yeah, full HD. Right, okay. Yeah, I have a new camera which arrived a few days ago. What was it? Yesterday or day before yesterday, doesn't matter. So this is the first ever stream with my new cam, C9 922 Logitech Pro Stream webcam. I hope you're seeing me much better than before. Right, so the quality is much better. Anyway, yeah, so I'm in rather odd place. You wouldn't believe from where I'm streaming. Because usually I stream from home. But this time there's a very nice weekend tournament in a small Latvian town called Kveinys. There's a camp Mežezers. Yeah, thank you, Miro. And they were so kind, the local municipality, they were so kind to let me in their offices and actually stream from there because I needed to have a space. Since I had to depart quicker than usual, they were very kind to let me in and even offered me a bottle of water, right? Anyway, right. Let's go back to the topic. I mean, today's topic is the Maroczy Bind. Why Maroczy Bind? This is something which I've become quite a big fan over the years. I did not really understood its power before I started to use it myself in my own game. So what is the Maroczy Bind? Very quickly I'll set up a position and you'll start to understand these nuances. Probably you already know this, at least some of it. I mean, one way how we could try to get to the Maroczy Bind is we go to the hyper-accelerated dragon, right? It's e4, c5, knight f3, g6, right? Or knight c6, it doesn't really matter that much. d4, c takes, knight e4, and either knight c6 or bishop g7. Here is c4. That's the Maroczy Bind. Yeah, there are many ways, Alberto. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, taste your loss. Yeah, thank you, I appreciate it. So this is the so-called Maroczy Bind. Essentially the pawns of c4 and e4. Hi, Vishnu. So I can draw these pawns, c4 and e4, against usually the pawn is on d6. So let's say black plays d6, and this pawn structure was a long time ago already titled after, I hope I'm not mistaken, Geza Maroczy, like the Hungarian great master who I think it was named according to him. To be honest, I did not check it. And this structure is known as the Maroczy Bind. It's quite tough structure for black to break through. So the other option how white can get to this, which I've managed to get more than once myself, because I think so after Geza Maroczy, unless there is another Maroczy. I did not check it. I assume it's automatically Geza Maroczy's invention. I assume it must be the case, unless of course there is somebody else titled as Maroczy. I didn't check it, to be honest. I'm pretty sure it's Geza Maroczy. which was named after him. So c4, c5, knight f3. Here black would play knight c6. Yeah, after c4, exactly, Alberto, you're right. Yeah, and after knight c6, d4, c takes, knight d4. I mean, obviously, black can play multiple ways. He can play e6, he can play e5. He can start with knight f6, knight c3, and then he can play e6, then he can play d6, whatever. I mean, he can have many continuations here. Let me check e4, c5. No, I'm pretty sure it allows C4 Maroczy Bind. Yeah, it's a new stream, new location for stream. Yeah, today I'm on my way to a local weekend tournament here in Latvia, so I had to find new premises. And yeah, thank you, Vishnu. And the local municipality, they were very kind to let me in and do the stream from their premises. Can you imagine this? They're very super kind personnel here. From the municipality of Kveinys. Yes, you probably have never heard of it before, so I'm not streaming from home. Right, what you're saying is e4, c5, knight f3, g6, knight a6 is not stopping really Maroczy Bind, answering taste your loss, your question. Yeah, and here, for example, black would play g6, and now we can switch to e4. This is more tricky, this order of the moves. I mean, because it allows certain nuances, which we could cover. But let's start with something basic. Why this position is supposedly so great for white? I mean, why this Maroczy Bind is feared by many players? Why it is such a great weapon for you to have as a white? Let's start from the beginning. And let's go e4, c5, here g6, or knight c6. It's also possible, of course, knight c6, d4 takes, knight d4, and for example, black could play accelerated dragon. Not hyper accelerated dragon, but accelerated dragon without playing d6. So he plays g6. Now, obviously, the taste varies. I've talked with other GMs, for example, and I've heard such an opinion that Maroczy Bind is not really anything special. There's other better continuations against the dragon. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It depends what is your taste. My taste, particularly, against any kind of dragons, hyper or accelerated dragons, it's the Maroczy Bind. If somebody else finds it to play the classical way, knight c3, bishop e3, queen d2, the typical way, right? Something like this. If black is gonna set up a classical dragon by playing d6, we can play the classical dragons completely fine. Yeah, I'm just saying is that this is my really favorite weapon to set up the Maroczy Bind against people who are playing this, who are allowing this as black. So here bishop g7, and I think we can try to define already one of the first rules. I believe that the knight should remain on d4 at all costs, because if, for example, you would get this position, we could try to get it. For example, something like, let me try to do this. I'll start with c4. Let's say c4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, d4. No, wait, doesn't really work. Okay, I'll start with knight c3. Yeah, knight c3, knight c6, knight f3, g6. Yeah, seemingly it's the same, right? It's not the same, because here your knight is forced to retreat from the d4 square. You cannot manage to play e4 and bishop e3, and I believe these structures after knight c2, they are sort of harmless for black, although it's probably pretty much playable for white. You are gonna play e4, f3, bishop e3, bishop e2, bishop e3 anyway, and most likely the knight is gonna go back to d4. And not to mention, there is also this very tricky continuation, bishop takes in c3, b takes. What was the continuation? Queen f5, I think. And computer really likes this position for black. But okay, that's not today's topic. So I believe the best way how you can get the perfect Maroczy Bind is keep the knight on d4. So that is the first rule. So knight f3, knight c6, d4, c takes. You know, I know this is sort of paradoxical moment, because since I'm a big fan of the offbeat Sicilians, so this would mean after knight c6 you have to play d4, c takes, knight d4, and maybe if your opponent is going to play g6, then you switch to the Maroczy Bind, right? But like I said before, this position can be reached also from the English. It's the same. Taste your loss. It's the same. What you're mentioning this line, it's exactly the same. You're gonna play bishop e3. This is exactly what I said. I mean, you're being able to use the same system, the same knowledge in many occasions. So that's why I think it's rather important. Yeah, what you're mentioning here is, again, knight d4, g6. Of course, I mean, like I said, I mean, knight c3 is completely fine. There's nothing wrong with the move. I mean, knight c3, bishop g7, bishop e3, knight f6, bishop c4 here, bishop b3. What was the latest move here? Something like rook e8. I don't remember. Yeah, there was some very smart new move here in this position. Knight g4 is in white's favor. d6 was... What was d6? h3. You know, I've played this Dubov. Okay. Black side. Yeah, something like this. a5, a4, then d5. Yeah, this is obviously big theory, of course. And I do believe that still probably black knows everything perfectly. He should get a reasonable game, because that's one of my core beliefs, is that chess is a drawn game. I mean, if the opponents are playing perfectly, there's just no way that one of the opponents is simply going to win and the second is going to lose. It doesn't work like that. Yeah, so anyway, let's go back to the Maroczy Bind. And exactly, we are going to play c4, bishop g7, bishop e3. So that's the idea. No. After knight g4, you have to take on g4 in most occasions. You refer to this maneuver, knight f6 and knight g4. That's a classical idea, to sacrifice the knight on d4 in g4 so that he takes on d4. But we are going to get to it, Alberto. We're going to get to it. We are going to have this idea here in this position. So let's imagine here. Obviously, black doesn't ever take on d4. So he plays typically knight f6. So why cannot he really take on d4? It's because white simply gains a very reasonable space advantage. So something like knight d4 takes... I don't know. I mean, knight f6 makes little sense here, right? This knight has nowhere to go. Knight h5 looks weird. Actually, I'm not so sure if white even has to push e4, e5. That was my first idea, but maybe it's not even necessary. Knight h5, something queen a5, some ideas appear. Here knight comes to f4, e6. Maybe e4, e5 is not necessary. I could play simply knight c3, and I have a very good pieces here in the center. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I understand it. I've played it a couple of times with black myself, Vishnu. I know the feeling. It does let you feel uncomfortable because you are lacking an active space, an active game plan. We are gonna get to it. So let's say here after bishop takes. Let's say we are playing it out primitively. Takes. Now obviously black is in a deep trouble. His rook is underdeveloped. Something like knight f6 is e5, knight c3. It pretty much doesn't really matter how you continue to play out this position. White automatically gains a considerable space advantage. So any pawn movement for black is going to create weaknesses. This position is already bad. You mean the bishop on d4? White should be bad. You mean here? I think it's positioned actually perfectly. So bishop d4, here, knight c3, castle, bishop e2. Most likely, you know, black doesn't really play like this. I mean, there's no reason for him to take on d4, to clarify the position, and then not to take with the bishop on d4. So he could play something like, I don't know, maybe d6. Yeah, d6, castle, bishop e6. We are going to get similar positions during this training camp and the traditional ideas. Yeah, so typically here black, what he does, he doesn't play any knight. Yeah, he plays knight f6, and it might be scary for you that no, d4 is a great square for you to control. Yeah, if you can control it, it is. You mean for black, it's disturbing. Okay, so here, for example, black would love to try to play queen b6. It's a classical idea. Yeah, so queen b6, I'm targeting here, I'm attacking here. I'm from afar. Yeah, from afar it might seem, okay, I mean, this is sort of dangerous, what I'm gonna do now. But you know, this is not really anything because black is effectively wasting some tempos here. It's very easy to retreat with the knight. I mean, of course, knight b5 is a completely normal move, but probably the simplest one is you just play here. And the question is, where is this queen going to go? So something like, I don't know, I mean, queen c7 maybe, knight c3. If you're concerned about any ideas that black would take on c3 and play something like d6, knight f6, don't. I mean, after queen c7, you can play as well queen d2. It makes perfect sense. Yeah, so queen d2 followed by knight c3, something like knight f6, knight c3, and this queen is clearly misplaced on c7. So this is why this early lash out of the queen, it doesn't really contribute anything for black. It's typically sort of like a very emotional move, trying immediately to punish white for the chosen strategy. But if you already know that this is a theoretical position, obviously there is no punishment. So let's go back. Yeah, here, for example, bishop e3 is something like, again, queen b6, knight b3, maybe some check. I mean, makes zero sense. Simply bishop d2, queen d6, knight c3. Black has effectively wasted a lot of tempos. Bishop c. I mean, I did not say you have to avoid. It's not like if black is going to play bishop takes on c3 double the pawns, he is having a great position. Absolutely not. It just means it's going to be rather complex strategic battle. Maroczy Bind is completely, I mean, a different philosophy. So you can allow to take on c3 double the pawns is completely fine. But if you are concerned that your opponent is going to take on c2 double the pawns, then just don't allow it. It's very easy. You just have to recognize this idea. Here knight d4. Here knight d4 doesn't really strike me as a dangerous move. You can just take on d4, I think. Although computer says knight e5 is super strong. But you know, this is already, I think even simply takes knight e4, queen d4, and bishop e2. And most likely we are going to get to, again, a classical Maroczy Bind. So let's go ahead. What I wanted to say is there is just no way how your opponent can avoid this. If he plays early g6, if he plays accelerated or hyper-accelerated dragons, he is going to have to face the Maroczy Bind. So if you know your opponent is a big fan of fianchetting the bishops, the dark square bishops, you can also try it with c4. Let's say you know your opponent is playing the symmetrical English with c4, c5. You start with knight f3. Again, let's go back. So we start with c4, c5, knight f3. You know your opponent is playing g6. Or he plays knight c6. It doesn't matter. Takes, knight e4, bishop g7, and again, we reach the same position. So e4, knight c6, and bishop e3. I think knight c6 has to be included because essentially the black knight is nowhere better positioned. So knight c6, bishop e3, and let's start to play with some of the main moves. So knight f6 and knight c3. Here the idea is what we want to do. We want to play typically bishop e2, short castle, and f3. So we are going to have this very nice pawn chain here, which is going to limit a lot of activity for your opponent. There have been tries for black, try to stop this. For example, black could play knight g4. Yeah, it's a very nicely looking move, a standard idea from the dragon. It might seem, wait a second, I'm winning something here, right? I mean, the idea obviously is that knight takes on c6. Yeah, by the way, I have to calculate now knight e3, knight d1, what happens here. But in the worst scenario, after knight c6, black can take with the d pawn, and this bishop is defending the knight. So don't be surprised with knight g4, it's a classical idea. I think what you need to know here is the main rule: never, ever allow to trade your dark square bishop for your opponent's knight. Never. So if you get this position, and let's say you'd be thinking about something like queen d2, don't. I mean queen d2 or knight c2, allow to trade on e3. You'll be automatically worse. Why is that? For example, something like knight c2 takes. This is a super powerful bishop. And black has already solved his opening problems. I would be already playing this position as black. You need your dark square bishop to counter your opponent's mighty bishop on g7. If possible, in some occasions, we are going to trade it. Not always. Why not always? We are going to get to that. So let's go back to this position. So if your opponent is going to play knight g4, obviously, d6, bishop d5, it's not the same. I see your question, taste your loss. We are going to get to that position. It's also rather important. Yeah, I have prepared that for you. I'm gonna show you the line which you're referring is from the anti-Sicilian anti-Najdorf line. Yeah. So again, I apologize if you sometimes it might be sort of annoying if I go back a lot of times, but since there are these questions incoming, I would rather answer them immediately than try to remember what was asked before. Yeah, the canal or the Moscow operation, it has many names. Even I believe it was called also Rossalimo, although I believe Rossalimo is knight c6 technically. Yeah, the question here was about e4, c5, knight f3, d6, bishop b5, which I did my bootcamp 2 weeks ago. So bishop b5, bishop d7, takes, and here is c4. This is still the Maroczy Bind, exactly, but we have traded the bishops. So we are going to play knight c3, knight c3, d4, what is this? So d4, c takes, knight d4, followed by most likely f3 and the same ideas. Okay, Nejmedinov, okay. There are many titles, obviously, because typically the lines are titled according to the great masters who played them. Yeah. Maybe in 50 years they'll call the Neiksans variation. If I'll have contributed something to the line, but okay, just joking. Yeah, I mean, it is called the Moscow variation as far as I know. That's the most popular title of bishop b5. Knight c6, bishop b5 is called the Rossalimo. But again, if somebody does really huge contributing really huge material to this line, then these lines, they tend to be renamed after some time. Anyway, okay, let's go back. Yeah, where did I go? So e4, g6. Let's go back again to this position. It can arise in so many ways. So knight f6 and knight c3. Now let's have a look at this knight g4. So again, like I explained to you, the principle is do not allow your dark square bishop to be traded. So you're going to need to watch out of this knight g4 lash out at any given time. So for example, if your opponent would be playing d6, this is already a clear signal he wants to play knight g4. So you don't have time for everything else. You don't have time for rook c1. You don't have time for g3. You don't have time for, either f3 or bishop e2. I pretty much think it's the same. Doesn't really matter. There's some nuances, but bishop e2 probably is a safer move to avoid any unnecessary tactics. We're going to get to this. But again, watch out this knight g4. Some f3 is the classical Najdorf English. Yeah, f3 is, I think it's the core idea of the Maroczy Bind. But again, not always you're going to play f3. We are going to get why not always. So again, let's go back to knight g4. I recommend to take queen takes on g4 if black is willing to take on d4 with the bishop. Okay, let him. So you can just take. I did not really check this theory because nobody plays like this. Computer says here long castle is perfectly fine. It's completely, by the way, normal. I think just develop the last pieces, protect against the knight c2 threat, and something like, I don't know, maybe knight e6, h4, h5. White is clearly ahead in development. Black has developed nothing except of the knight. So this is why pretty much nobody plays like this. e5, yeah, maybe e5. Yeah, maybe e5 is interesting. But again, this typical move of e5 is a very committal move. Yet really weakens a lot of squares for black. So I don't know, I mean, here something like, of course I'm very smart to check what computer is saying. I just can tell you this, that nobody is playing like this. So something like, I don't know, queen g3, d6, f4. Maybe at the right time you can exchange the knight from d4 with knight b5, which is a classical idea. Your king is feeling sort of safe here. Where is gonna go this guy? To short castle? Under h4, h5? Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm not so sure actually you even did need to make a long castle here. That was just an illustration. You could simply play something like queen d1. So queen d1, e5, and something like prepare at some moment. Let's say I'll just make some moves. So bishop d3, castle, castle, d6, and just drive it out. That's it. Just drive it out. The knight is not going to stay there. So if he's going to trade, so you have an eternal weakness on d6. That's it. Yeah, I mean, maybe queen d1. Long castle just was a suggestion. I mean, just to try to kill two birds with one stone. We defend against a threat. We make a castle. We activate the rook. We win a tempo. So that was the only idea. And obviously, you don't have to. You don't have to make a long castle here. So this is easy game for white. Yeah, something like queen d2 here, queen e3, double the rooks on the e file, put the other queen on a3, something, I don't know, and target the pawn on d6 until it falls. Very easy strategy. Okay, but typically if black plays knight g4, queen g4, he takes on d4 with the knight. So knight d4. I see your yeah, that's a very valid question, taste your loss. You know what? There's a little backstory to this. Again, we have to go back, but this is very interesting questions you're asking me. So let me go back. Trades good for white. Difficult to tell. I mean, I wouldn't really try to classify immediately that any trades are immediately better for white. I mean, we have to look at a specific position. Depends which piece. There is no such a generic rule. But the question here, the other question was, what if, it's a very valid question. So after g6, d4, c takes, knight e4, if black plays knight f6. You know, but this is weird. I mean, obviously, yeah, knight f6 stops the Maroczy bind. I know this because I have a very funny backstory about this. So knight f6, you cannot play e5 is queen a5 and attacking the pawn on e5. So you have to play knight c3 and then black resumes the classical dragon. But you know, who is gonna do this for black? Who is gonna start accelerated dragon? Because it is not really that a great opening. And then he sees you're putting on the dreadful. I mean, he still has no information. So he sees you go d4 and suddenly he switches to the classical dragon. It makes no sense, but of course this is technically still possible. But the funny backstory here is that I was playing last year in a very nice tournament in St. Louis. There was this summer chess classic. I was invited, very happy, very grateful. And I was playing against Christian Kirilla. And I noticed he is a big fan. He's actually a great streamer here at Twitch. I believe he goes by the nickname of the Count. Yeah, he is more famous, the Count Dracula. He's from Romania originally. Now I believe he's residing in the United States. And I was gonna play against him. I believe it was the third, the fourth round, but I don't remember. And I noticed he's playing constantly typical accelerated dragons, and he loves to position the bishop on g7. I was thinking how to put against him the Maroczy bind and avoid dragon. So what I did, I'll try to remember this. I believe I found a way. So here after g6, I think that was in our game. You can check it in the database. Neiksans against Kirilla or Chirilla. I do not really how his last name correctly spells it out. You mean here d4 takes. Yeah, but the bishop does nothing there. And again, if black is gonna play knight c6, how you're gonna guard this? This d5, and this is absolutely not Maroczy bind. This is something else. I don't know what is this. I mean, maybe it's playable, but this is not a Maroczy bind. So the trick here is I start with c4. It adds extra lines. It has extra lines, and he tried to trick me. Yeah, hi, I'm Latvian. How are you? Boing Shan. So I started with c4. The idea was that c4, bishop g7, d4. If black is going to take on d4, we switch to the Maroczy Bind. And yeah, but wait a second, guys. There is a trick. It adds extra lines. So I was thinking about this when I was preparing against Christian. Should I do this? Should I go for this order of the moves? Because I wasn't really concerned about dragon. I mean, not concerned about the dragon. But the thing is, I had written a database for modern chess, and I was advocating exactly this line to get the Maroczy Bind. And I think, wait a second, how it's gonna be? I'm recommending something for my readers, and then I'm playing something else. And I thought, wait a second, so I need to play this myself as well. I need to play what I'm recommending, so I played C for the next move. So this is the Maroczy Bind. Yeah, we are checking the Maroczy Bind structures, which can arise from either accelerated or hyper-accelerated dragon positions, or symmetrical English is rather popular way how you can get this. Or it doesn't really matter, you can get it from many order of the moves, something like probably I should have started this knight of 3, g6, c4, c5, d4 takes. Again, is a one way how you can get this. Another way is maybe c4, g6, d4, c5. Of course, you have to push d5, I believe, but again, you reach the same. Yeah, it's, of course, any single line creates extra additional lines for your opponent. It's not really that simple, but I think the core position remains the same. So for example, in the game against Christian Shirilla, what I did, I played c4, e4, c5, knight f3, g6. I think I played c4, and he was trying to trick me here, and he played something like, now I wish I remember, I played it a year ago, already forgot. He did not take on d4. He played, I think d6. It's a rather tricky move, yeah, because he is not obliged to take on d4 now. And the game progressed something like, I don't remember. Here takes, no, he did not take. He played something queen b6. I don't remember. You know, doesn't matter. I won a great game. It's available in my it's available in my YouTube channel. Yeah, you can check it. Actually, I analyzed this. There's if you go to my YouTube, I can give you the command here. It's here. You can check my channel. Against Christian Chirilla a year ago, I did my analysis. I was in the studio of St. Louis Chess Club, and I analyzed this. It's rather nice. I think it quite nicely illustrates the ideas I was thinking about, and I managed to win a very nice game. So again, okay, no more distractions. Let's go back to the main line. So e4, c5. Of course, you are very much welcome to ask questions. I just want to show this idea. So g6 here, c4, knight c6, bishop e3, knight f6, knight c3. Right. I mean, you know, I don't know really. Can you play here immediately f3? Probably you can. But the problem with this f3 is you have to be ready. As soon as you play f3, there might be an occasion when black would play queen b6. This bishop is no longer protected on e3. I mean, I don't know what is this. I have not analyzed this because it makes no sense to start with f3 to avoid this knight g4 threat. But this is still possible. And something like knight f5 takes, knight g7, king f8. What is this? I don't know. Should be really a decent compensation for white because we managed to win the dark square bishop. Something like, I don't know, knight d2 here. And because of the weakened dark squares, white should be enjoying a rather good compensation. But that's not the point of today's bootcamp. So we are going to play, we are going to play knight c6, bishop e3, knight f6, knight c3. And after knight g4, we are not giving up this bishop. We take on g4. And after knight d4, we go back. Queen d1. Very easy. So we want to drive away this knight. So black has to do something about it, right? I mean, I don't think the queen b6 here is possible. Queen b6 is asking for trouble. So because this is a pin, of course I understand this motif to take on b2 is something like queen d2. And the spin is staying here, so it makes almost no sense here. Yeah, so black has two options here. Either he defends the knight by making a very committal move, or he retreats. Let's say he is protecting e5. You know, there was quite a famous game. I did not look for this. I'm now trying to remember. The European Championship 2017, Ivan Saric against David Navara. Yeah, it's very risky move, and Ivan Saric beat confidently in the last round of European Individual Chess Championships. Which year was it? 17, 18 maybe. I don't remember. And he won the European Championship title. So he played something like this. It was, I'll try to remember this. Bishop d3, castle, d6. I usually am advocating to play knight d2. I think it's already solidly better. Let me check your question. Yeah, rest in peace, the d5 square. Let me check your question. Tick, 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 tick. Here. The delaying bishop g7, again, we are going to check it. Yeah, please don't forget the question. Queen d2. Yeah, there's so many questions already. I have a bit of problem to follow up. Yeah, you're welcome. Hi, Tottenham. Happy that you are back. Yeah, we started about half an hour ago. Yeah. So here, what idea Ivan Saric he used in the game? He played a4. That was his idea. He played a4 with the idea to play knight b5, draw away the knight, and if black is gonna take, he can take with the pawn. And in the game, it was something like bishop p6. No, wait a second. He didn't play knight b5. I think he played a5. a5, a6, gaining some space advantage. So he developed a piece as something like this. You can check it in the database. It's there. I mean, the game Ivan Saric with white against David Navara with black. Last round of the European Individual Chess Championship. I just don't remember which year. 17 or 18. I mean, I don't remember. I just remember it was rather significant. I think he wants just to gain some space advantage. So a4, a5, queen a4, rook d1, maybe at the right time to take on d4. But you know what? I wouldn't really want to give up this dark square bishop. I want to exchange it, the d4 for a knight. So I could play something like, let's say, I don't know, something like, queen e7, maybe queen a4. I could play knight b5 afterwards. So he's going to play something like here. Knight b5 takes. Computer already doesn't like my idea. I wanted to play with the c pawn, but yeah, there's d6, d5. Yeah, that was the idea. I mean, it was super deep. But again, I'm recommending something else. You don't have to do this. I think the simplest idea here is after bishop d3, whatever, castle, d6, just play knight d2. Why not? Again. I don't know what you're writing there. Mubot is, of course, you have to be very grateful. He is trying to do his job. He is auto checking if everything is in order. You're copying the game. Okay, you can send it in the whisper if you want, but I already sort of moved past it. So knight e2, bishop e2. This is again a weakness on d6. Easy plan, double everything on the d file, target it as the strong as you can, and black can try to do something here, f5, f4 maybe. Okay, but again, this knight g4 is not really that dangerous. By the way, this knight g4, it can arise from the same position, but if black is playing knight h6, yeah, I believe this is rather important. Yeah, we don't want to trade, but you know, no, you mean if black doesn't want to trade, let me check it. Here, take, no, sorry. I think both players are perfectly happy to keep the bishops on the board. I think it doesn't really change your strategy. If the bishops are there or if they are not there, you just want to get rid of this knight on d4 by the means of trading the knights, not the bishop. I think so, at least. Okay. But black would try to play something awkward. He could try to play knight h6. Yeah, there is this tricky idea. It's, again, the idea is to play something like knight g4. I'm sorry, yeah. So knight c3 and knight g4 is essentially the same. But the other idea, what black would try to do, he could think about f5. So at the right time, he would love to trade on d4, or maybe without the trading, he would love to push f7, f5. So this is why the knight is on h6. But again, this is rather obvious, right? It is rather obvious that what black wants to do here. So you just what to do? You just continue the development. So let's say castle, bishop e2. Okay, I mean, if you check the computer, yeah, computer finds some improvising moves as h4. Well, maybe. Well, I did not bother even to analyze this because knight h6 is such a strange move, but h4, h5 is a rather reasonable idea. So, of course, you can test it. The knight is not on f6, so there's obviously the drawback. I believe that every single move has a drawback. Every single one. It's not like there's such a perfect move. Every move, wherever you would position your pieces, it has the plus, it has the minus. So if you're the opponent, you have to find the minus. Yeah, so bishop e, oh sorry, castle, bishop e2. Now knight g4 is impossible. Yeah, if you want to play against a fianchetto, h4, yeah, it's a nice idea. Yeah, I know this. This h4, h5 is a nice idea. Also, Magnus approves it. I know this. I've seen it. And here, let's say black would play something like f5 immediately. Again, f5, we are going to take. I think, actually, it's also one of the rules here is, this is a bad position for black, but it's important to know. One of the rules here for white is pretty much at every single position, if your opponent plays f5, take it. Take the pawn. Don't defend the pawn on e4. That's it. I mean, we are going to get quite a lot of similar positions. I hope I'll manage to show you most of them. So black, what he wants to do here? He wants to play 5f4, right? Maybe some g5, g4. I mean, here he's simply threatening to win a piece. No, it's not scary. Don't worry. So we just take it. We take it. We take on f5. We don't defend it. So the wrong approach would be playing f3. Well, maybe it is technically possible, but again, what are you going to take on e4? Not with the pawn, right? Because this weakness on e5 is gonna be have consequences. So we are not gonna take it. We are gonna take on f5. You want to push your g4, h4. No, I think we have to play it slightly more positional than this. But you know what I wanted to mention. If your opponent does nothing like this, he doesn't play knight g4 and he doesn't play f5. I mean, of course, you can improvise. You can play h4, you can play g4, play whichever move suits your style. But I think it is a rather reasonable idea. If your opponent is not letting this knight out of the cage, it really makes sense to let him suffer. Something like h3 with the idea queen d2. So he is going to have to. He is going to have to push f5 sooner or later. Otherwise, the knight on h6. Why did he position it there? So it is already telling you a lot. If the opponent is playing knight h6, it already tells you quite a lot about a rising position, that he is most likely going to play f5. Because if he wanted to play knight g4, most likely he would have played knight f6 with more options available. But okay, I mean, you never really know. So anyway, so knight h6, knight c3 castle, bishop e2 f5, we are going to take it. And here are two critical positions. So if your opponent is taking with the knight, super easy. You just trade it. Trade, simply make castle, queen d2, knight d5, f4, bishop f3. Maybe all of this is not even necessary, but these pawns, they are gonna get weak. And it is super easy to target them. So I don't see how this position is an achievement for black. Why did he go for that? So what he actually might try to do, why he played f5, he could actually try to get a pawn center and play something like g takes on f5. But again, I mean, you can play something like, can I do what here? Queen d2, queen d2, man. No, queen d2 makes almost no sense. I would probably just castle. So something like f4 takes. What is this? What are these pieces doing there? They're not even developed. Black is just sitting and doing nothing. So his pawn e7, e5 is not really creating any center. So you can just take a good care of the weakened white square, something like bishop d3, knight e4. So I think actually if Black would do this, he would play something like e5. But he sacrifices really quite a lot of squares to do this. So you play something like knight b5, knight d5, knight d6. The entire queen side for Black is sleeping. And all of this for the sake of these two pawns. This is a way too big price to pay for Black. And if you're really concerned about these pawns, you just play f4, right? Just destroy the center. So fix those pawns. So this is not a good approach for Black, because he is letting his entire queen side underdeveloped. So typically here, if Black would play something like this, he could try to trick you with bishop takes on d4. I've seen this trick. Bishop takes on d4. And the point is after bishop takes on d4, Black would love to play knight f5, and this bishop is feeling sort of awkward. Something like here, d6, bishop a3. Well, maybe it's playable. Why not? Yeah, he has central control on a lot of weaknesses. Yeah, exactly, Alberto. You're right. Bishop takes on h6. Yeah. So I just wanted to show you this trick. So bishop takes on h6. Bishop takes on d4. We're going to take on h6. It's a paradoxical move, I know. I mean, you would want to take bishop d4, right? Automatic move. But again, especially in chess, I believe there is no such thing as automatic moves. You have to be very, very careful. I know many people make this mistake. I mean, my opponent takes, I take, he attacks, I defend. And you just miss a lot of opportunities during this time. So you have to always keep your eyes and ears open. So bishop h6, this rook is under attack. Here, castle. And I even had analysis here that queen b6 was possible, doing some double attack. I just don't remember what was the strongest move. I think there was some gambit. Yeah, knight d5. I mean, maybe there's other moves as well. Black is super underdeveloped. Super underdeveloped. This is so dangerous for him. But you can play knight d5. And there was a beautiful winning idea for white. I wish I would remember this. You could just switch on the engine, you're gonna find it. There was some idea. Let me try to remember. Bishop g4, rook f7, and knight e7. Yeah, there you go. Now I remember this. Computer already check this. So knight e7, and bishop e6. Yeah, this is from some old analysis. I sort of remember this. Black is completely busted. Maybe it's not even the only variation here. So obviously b takes is impossible because of the queen d8 checkmate, backfront problem. And if Black allows to take on f7, this bishop is falling. So the entire position falls apart. So I think it was a very human approach from Black, knight e5. Okay, I mean, he doesn't have to take on b2. But queen b2 I think is the same, right? Knight e7, rook b1. I mean, if you would know this idea already, it's already quite a lot. So let's not complicate the matters too much, because we don't have to. We don't have to know all of these specifics. We just have to know the ideas. So this entire idea of f5 is more like a surprise weapon. Your opponent wants to surprise you and check if you're prepared. The arising positions, they won't have anything to do with the classical Maroczy Bind. But yeah, your opponent is testing you. How will you react to uncommon positions? Yeah, and I completely forgot. There was one more idea. That after either knight f6, knight g4, or knight h6, knight g4, Again, we take on d4, g4, I apologize, knight d4, queen d1. I said that there are two options. Black can either retreat or he can play e7, e5. So let's say our opponent is retreating. So let's say knight c6. Knight c6. So the problem for him is that, let's say something like rook c1, we are stopping the idea of bishop c3, castle, bishop e2, d6, castle. And what's interesting about this position is you don't have to play f2, f3 anymore. There is no knight on f6. There is no knight f6, g4 to reckon with. So you just continue to play positionally. Typical ideas involve queen d2, rook d1, a very annoying move to meet knight d5, and just try to gain some space. f4, bishop f3, maybe somebody would think about some ideas of h4, h5, and here we start already to grasp the first problems for black when you are playing against Maroczy Bind. So let me switch the position, flip the position. And now the question is this. Can you suggest me for black an active game plan? So what involves an active game plan? An active game plan involves pushing the pawns forward, because moving with the pieces, it's not enough. You also need to advance your pawns. The question is, which pawns? Again, exactly, Alberto, f5, again, f5. f5, we take on f5. Super easy stuff. So f5, we're going to take on f5, play queen d2, one rook goes here, the second rook goes here, and these are very annoying half-open lines. E and D file for white. No weaknesses for white. A lot of weaknesses for black. f5 is very, I mean, not even queen d5. You just take on f5. Don't play f3. Yeah, it's quite annoying. So if f5 doesn't work, what can black do here? He could try to play a6, b5, right? But now look at this position. How many defenders has white against the b5 square? It's 1, 2, 3. If necessary, 4. So what are the chances? Never play f3. Depends, because f3 is rather crucial position. So yeah, exactly, tasty loss. I see, yeah, something like a6, bishop d7, bishop d7, queen a5, rook b8, knight e5. Of course, all of this is possible. Yeah, that's a nice quote against Kasparov. I believe you have seen this great video, Kasparov against Karpov, his greatest sacrifice in the World Championship match, where he was calculating the pieces, 7 attackers against 5, 6 against 4, 5 against 3. Yeah, I know that. I watched this. It's a really lovely video. I've used it, showed to my students. Right. So, of course, yeah, black would love to play a6, b5, but again, it's going to take quite a lot of time. And there's not even guaranteed that black is going to do this. So it means its entire king side is free for you to use as a white player. Right? Something like h4, h5, f4, f5. Maybe h4, f4, h5, rook f3, rook g3, and just attack everything on the king side. I mean, black is just sitting and watching. So this is why I believe it's a rather strategically wise, a dangerous position to play the Maroczy Bind. I believe so. I played on multiple GMs, Maroczy Bind. Everyone was suffering. I mean, I've lost some games, of course, in some accelerated time controls, but it's always like, oh, Maroczy Bind is coming. Right? Because I already recognize the ideas, I know the threats, I know the problems of the position. So, okay. Let's imagine if opponent is improvising big time, and he is not going to position the knight on c6, he's going to play knight e6. Yeah, so knight e6 is interesting idea, by the way. Yeah, so again, he wants to play something like d6, queen a5, b6, bishop b7, and maybe, just maybe, he wants to take on c3, double the pawns. So actually that might be a rather interesting idea. I want to play b6, bishop a6, rook c8, and queen c7. I just take this pawn. And this idea to voluntarily give up this beautiful bishop for a knight on c3 and jump under a possible direct attack, yeah, rook c1 first. It is a very sound idea. It is a classical idea. It's a very interesting, but it's not even modern because people have been playing this for decades. This bishop takes on c3. Yeah, of course. So this is why we start with rook c3, rook c1. But again, please do not mistake me. It doesn't mean that bishop takes on c3 is something that you should avoid. I mean, why not? Your opponent gives up his dark square bishop for a big, big price. He weakens his king. But what I wanted to say is that the character of the position changes dramatically. So for the sake of simplicity, I am suggesting rook c1, but it doesn't mean you have to do this. So rook c1, yeah, that's a great plan, Alberto. Yeah, that's a great plan. So something like, let's say, castle, bishop b2. What I wanted now to mention here is, oh, wait a second, I think I'm mixing up. So rook c1, queen. What I wanted to mention here, there is a rather nice idea not to rush with the queen development, because there is a very nice idea. As soon as black is going to play b6 and bishop b7, you play queen d5. So this is why we don't position the queen on d2. So for example, I try not to remember this. I think it was b6, and now we play queen d5 in one go. Attacking rook. Otherwise, I mean, of course, you can play normally. Something like b6, castle, bishop b7, f3, d6. That's probably just fine. You mean the pawn on a2? Yeah, it is possible here, right? I mean, queen a5, bishop e2, takes on c3. Yeah, it is possible. But I think it's strategically super risky, because white is normally very happy to get this position. There is a theoretical line. I have a pawn on a2, pawn on c4. I've given up exactly the same pawn. Here, I have a lot of compensation. Yeah, this is a long-term compensation for the sacrifice pawn. It means there is no direct checkmate. You don't have to find a direct checkmate. Just play positionally. Something like, I don't know, maybe queen d2, short castle, f4, f5, rook goes to h3. I mean, come on, this king is feeling very, very unsafe. But again, if you are concerned about this, don't do this. I mean, you don't have to do this. Play the position where you feel safe yourself, because I'm recommending something which is great according to my knowledge. But I mean, you might find that it's maybe risky. You don't really feel like you like it, and of course you can alter. Yeah, it's a great compensation. I do agree with this. Right. But the point is here why I wanted to suggest to play rook c1, not queen d2. It might seem exactly the same. It's not. We are keeping this idea to play queen d5. As soon as black is going to play queen a5 on b6. If he is going to play b6, he is going to get trouble with his queen. Where it's going to go? So that's why there is this classical idea. Black could play queen a5, bishop e2. Again, maybe he's testing you. Maybe you're going to defend the pawn on a3, on a2. Yeah, maybe he's expecting you to play a3. Yeah, by the way, it doesn't mean it's not playable. Yeah, now let me check it. Yeah, computer says a3 is completely fine. Again, if you feel uncomfortable sacrificing the pawn, don't sacrifice it. Yeah, computer says a3 is completely fine, but it just means that I don't think that black can really take this without suffering big time for the sacrifice pawn. Yeah, so again, queen a5, bishop e2. Let's say, for example, castle doesn't really matter. And here the point is, wait a second, this is a different position. Yeah, this is a different position. There's a weakness on e7. What I wanted to say, there is this idea that black would play b6, bishop b7, while still the king is on e8, so that there is no knight d5. And there was this idea to play queen d5. Yeah, this was what I wanted to mention. So queen d5, if rook b8, I even had a game in this line, wouldn't you believe it? Yeah, I did some analysis some years ago, and I managed to play this game in an actual game. Some FIDE master, I don't remember. I won the game convincingly. It's available in the database. Again, these pawns are super weak. Now I can play something like short castle, rook d1, prepare knight d5 at the right time. Perhaps you can snatch the pawn on ace. I think the game in particular went something like this. Here, here, here. I allowed him to regain the pawn, but I gained the 2 bishop advantage, which is already a significant advantage for white. Okay, but the other idea after rook b8, I'm sorry, queen d5, takes, knight c5, f3. The point is, high escuela, agrupación. I hope I pronounced it correctly. So white has 2 threats. One threat is b4, get rid of this knight, and the second positional threat is to play d6. And black is unable to defend against both threats. I mean, there's no way. If he plays a5, you play d6 and some knight d5 ideas. Or maybe king f2, rook d1, regain this pawn. If he's gonna play d6, you play b4. Again, he cannot do the same things at the same time. He could try to play knight d4. And there's just one idea which you just need to know, just one idea. It's super risky approach, this knight d4. Now we keep this knight here on d4. We play bishop d3. And whatever black is doing, whatever. So something like, yeah, maybe f5. And there's this very beautiful positional idea which I found a long time ago. Like Carlsen, I'm pretty sure Carlsen did not even invent this idea. This d6 positional pawn sacrificed by stopping your opponent to develop, ruining his pawn structure is a classical idea. I just even cannot name who did it as a first. So here the idea is to play e5, sacrifice this pawn. f4, king f2, and rook d1. This knight is in trouble, and that's what all you need to know. Very easy. So black is suffering already here, something like, I even don't know how to play here, to be honest, because e5 is already risking to lose a piece. Yeah, something like takes, and here maybe there was even a barrel continuation. So that knight is in danger. And that was the whole approach of this f5. e5, sacrifice this pawn, gain some important time, so that you can play king f2. I mean, if you don't know this in game, forget it, you're not gonna find it. I just know this idea. Instead of the castle, yeah, maybe castle is possible. Here, right? Yeah, castle, of course, yeah. Maybe castle, but I just think that we are sort of heading towards probably endgame. And when it does, my king is already closer to the action. I mean, I'm gonna play rook d1 anyway. And it feels the king on f2 is sort of closer to the action. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to castle as check. I made a castle in this game. You don't have to do this. Castling is only for the reason to activate the rook, which is not joining. So sometimes there is a better idea just not to make a castle and just make an active move with the king, and you achieve the same, but the king is more active. Again, but short castle is completely fine. Yeah, it's completely fine. I don't think it really matters. That was the idea. So, okay, and let's go to some of the classical Maroczy Bind positions. These were sidelines, and let's check it. So knight a6, bishop e3, knight f6, knight c3. Yeah, there was one more deviation possible. If black would play early d6, but this typically arises from, I believe, the English openings. Let me try to show it to you. I saw the question before, avoiding to play bishop g7. That was the idea, right? So it was something like this. c4, c5. Here, d4 takes, takes, knight f6, knight c3, d6. Yeah, this is quite tricky stuff. And now e4 and g6. Or maybe black would play the same. He could play the same with e4, c5, knight f3, here, 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 c4, knight f6, knight c3, d6. Yeah, there is this idea to postpone the development of the bishop. And the idea is black is waiting for white to play bishop e3. And again, remember, bishop e3, you need to reckon with knight g4. So you cannot allow knight g4. I mean, you could play h3, but h3 is not in your scheme. I mean, you want to play f3. So this is why I'm going to recommend to play f3 here. f3. So the idea is to play bishop e3 next move if our opponent does nothing. Yeah, by the way, the question is, can he actually... Can he... Oh, wait a second. I'll try to remember. What was the difference here? Bishop e2 takes here, here. This is super deep stuff. a5, b3, a4, yeah. Now I remember this. There was one nuance about this, but I mean, most likely you don't need even to worry about this, because this is like a tricky order of the moves called black manages to play this a5, a4, which is a classical idea. But even here white is better, so it's not something which you should be overly concerned about. But again, the simplest idea probably here is after knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, d6, we are going to play f3. So if black plays bishop g7, we play bishop e3, bishop e2, resume normal development. So black tries to play here. Takes, and here. It's still safe for you to play bishop e3. There is no knight g4, because, I mean, you just take to g7. Black makes a castle, and now you need to be careful. Knight g4 is a big threat. You cannot afford to play bishop e2. Bishop e2, knight g4, knight e3, this is exactly what black was dreaming about, exchanging this powerful dark-square bishop. So you need to retreat with the queen on d2. And there is this tricky idea of a5. Black wants to play a4, queen a5, and the queen is feeling rather active on a5. And maybe he's thinking about a4, a3. So that's the only reason why we are playing b3. We are stopping this idea to play a4. a4 and b4. Doesn't really work. Yeah, black is suffering. Rook c1, bishop e2, knight b5 or knight d5. You know, I don't even know what is better here. But what is important is this order of the moves. Because let's say you would play something normal, bishop e2. And now your opponent can take here, play bishop g7. And you're thinking, I need to make this. I need to make in time. Bishop e3, f3, and queen e2. That is your idea. To set up the Maroczy Bind. So you play bishop e3. Your opponent is playing castle, threatening to play knight g4. And you know, by plan, you have to play queen d2. Sort of not even minding knight g4, bishop g4, f3. You still get your Maroczy Bind. You should be very happy. But suddenly your opponent plays a5. You don't have b3 because of the knight e4. That is the difference. But again, I mean, even if your opponent tricked you like this, it's no big deal. I mean, let him play a4. So what? So he tricked you. You cannot play b3. So you have to play something like maybe f3. He is going to now push a4, castle, bishop d7, happily position the queen here, bishop here, knight here, queen b4, something. But still, this position is more favorable for white. Okay, now we finally start to understand some differences of the order of the moves. This is probably too deep stuff, really, but I think it's quite nice to know. So after, yeah, knight f6, knight c3, d6. We are gonna play f3. Let's say our opponent, he is not taking. Here, castle. Probably it's a safer choice to start with queen d2, not to mess with any queen b6 ideas. And let's stop here for a moment. Black is suffering because of the space advantage. White has the obvious space advantage here. So this means black should be seeking some kind of an active pawn play. But what to do here? I see, again, only two ideas here, which black could try to employ. f7, f5 makes almost no sense here. You mean with white? I know with black, Gadir Gusenov plays frequently. He's pretty much the only player at the top level who plays it. He's 2660, top 100 level player, world top 100 player. Among the 100 players with every player has played, even Magnus Carlsen. Everyone has played this. I believe a lot of people recognize the strength of the Maroczy Bind, the problems it creates. But of course, I mean, black doesn't play this. I mean, white plays this. But who does play this for black? If you check it, I mean, who plays hyper-accelerated dragon? Who plays accelerated dragon? Nobody plays this. I mean, pretty much those few games who are being played, if black is going here, very often white goes for Maroczy Bind. Yeah, exactly. Black doesn't play this. They play in some rapid, some blitz, world rapid, a blitz championship perhaps, and then you see some of the Maroczy Binds, of course. But of course, yeah, mostly in blitz games. Of course, I do believe that black is worse here. But with accurate defense, of course, he holds. Of course. I mean, because chess is a drawn game, which I already said before. And at the top level, let's say, I would say everybody already knows the strength of the Maroczy Bind, but sometimes they choose something else in order to surprise the opponent, because the element of the surprise is super important. And I believe at their level, they already know pretty much everything about the Maroczy Bind. And yeah, and sometimes even a player with black at the highest level, he could choose this because he's confident he is going to hold it. Yeah, although he knows he's suffering. So here the idea is, since black is suffering of space advantage, he should be happy to trade some pieces. So a wrong approach here would be to treat it as a classical dragon. I've actually seen this being played against myself in some online blitz. Black plays something like knight e5. While in dragon, it's a classical idea. But those of you who have played the dragon, Sicilian dragon, or faced a Sicilian dragon, you might remember what was the idea why black actually played knight e5. So the idea was to trade it on c4, right? I mean, knight c4, bishop c4, or rook c4, or queen c4, I mean. Which piece, whatever was standing there, the idea is to trade. Here, it creates no threats at all, because we have the pawn on c4, and it's easily defended by b2, b3. So something like knight e5, I don't know, I mean, you just play something like rook c1, bishop e2, b3, castle, h3 and f4. There you go, you just won a couple of tempos. It's not even a threat. I mean, it's very tempting, of course, to position the knight on the central square, but it's not doing anything except of advancing white pawns forward. Yeah, so black will have to take on d4. He has to take it. He has a couple of ideas which he could try to break through. It's either a6, b5 again, or e6, d5. But you know, here, it doesn't really strike me as a possibility that here actually d6, d5 is a possible move, because you can already switch your attention from a classical Maroczy Bind against the weakness on d6. This e6 idea, it is a known idea, but I don't think it's available here. So something like, I don't know, maybe knight c2. Yeah, so black, what, he's gonna have to play some gambit? Yeah, I'm not even sure what it's not sort of Scheveningen, because the bishop should be on e7. And even if this would be a Scheveningen, we already managed to set up a Maroczy Bind, which, by the way, also would be a great weapon against the Scheveningen. You know about the a4 ideas. Yeah, I'll try to define this. Typically, I try to avoid playing a4. I hope I'll get a more clear example than this. I try to avoid to play a4 with two knights on the board, which means if both of the players have two knights on the board, he's threatened to play a6, b5. I try to avoid this because he has a very nice blockade. One knight goes here, the second knight goes here, and he is attacking typically the pawn on b3. So that's the reason why I'm avoiding this. And there was even some old theory where people were playing this a to a4. I'll try to remember this. Let me check it. Something like knight d4. No, well, definitely then not here. But where was this? Where was this? Ah, wait a second. I'm mixing this up. This was in the Moscow variation. In the Sicilian Anti-Najdorf variation, e4, c5, knight f3, d6, bishop b5. And there arises the Maroczy Bind, and there was this moment. Yeah, now I'm slightly mixing up the positions because they're sort of similar. So here black has to take on d4. Take, and two ideas. Yeah, we can check it. I hope I won't forget it. If I will forget it, please remind me. So knight e4, bishop d4. Either bishop goes on d7 or on e6. There are two ideas. So let's check the classical idea. Bishop d7, bishop e2. Again, any e6, d5, it's very hard to imagine that it's gonna work for black. Castle, I'm sorry, bishop e2, yeah, bishop c6, castle, a5, and already we recognize this idea. I'm gonna get to your question, yeah. No, we are not gonna trade the bishops, we are not. It's a very, very important question. So you are gonna play a5. I mean, black is gonna play a5 with the idea to play a4, queen a5, knight d7, knight c5, queen b4, and try to scare white of something there. I don't know. What exactly? We are gonna play b3, stop this idea. b3 is a common idea to stop a4, queen a5. We recognize this idea, and now comes the critical moment. I think it's important to stop here for a moment and try to understand what black wants to do. I mean, of course, we also want to do something, but first we have to understand what black wants to do. He wants to trade the bishops and the queens. I think the rule is this. Probably exchanging the bishops, it's not really that dangerous. I mean, we can allow this. Exchanging the queens is going to be super difficult for you to play for the win. So for example, I'm going to play something normal. Yeah, it's a completely normal move because even computer won't tell you the difference. You're going to play here. I just defended the bishop. Black is going to take. He is going to play here. Now, well, seemingly, what's the problem? The knight is feeling misplaced. But the thing is, black has exchanged quite a lot of your good pieces, and his idea and his game plan is simpler than white. What he wants to do now, he wants to play knight e7, knight c5, position the one rook here. I'm not so sure about the immediate e5, maybe e6 or e5, king goes to e7 and f5. And potentially he'll be eyeing for knight e6, knight e4. All of that is perfectly clear. But the question is, what are you gonna do? Because if we had the queens on the board, we could try to attack the king side. We could actually create quite reasonable threats by targeting the king side, something h4, h5, king f2, rook h1 maybe here without queens. Makes no sense. right? So again, if you would ask this position for a computer, it's completely fine. Zero, he's saying to me right now, 0.27. That's the advantage for white. But I would choose this as black because again, I know this idea, I know the typical plans for black, and for white it's not so easy. Maybe something like a3, b4, but what? Yeah, not exactly clear what wants to do here. So this is what you want to avoid. So if you are forced to trade the bishops, the computer says it's for black sort of better, not for white. Yeah. So if you want to trade the bishops, then just don't trade the queens. That should be the rule. Although I believe you should try to keep the bishops also on the board. Yeah. So you can play king h1, takes, queen b6, and keep the queens on the board. Although here, specifically here, most likely black is very quick by organizing his game at the queen side. Yeah, so we completely misplay this. This idea to keep queens on the board, we are gonna see some examples, although from a slightly different line. So we could try to do, of course, we have to take care of this pawn first, something like f4, rook f3, rook h3, f5, queen h6, and at least try to create some threats. But again, in the first place, we shouldn't have traded the bishops. Let us go back and find out why. Why everybody is playing bishop e3 here? It's paradoxical, right? I mean, we should be happy to trade the bishops, but we recognize the arising position that black is essentially in a slightly cramped position. We have some space advantage. So according to some rules of chess, the player who is in a cramped position, he should be happy to trade some pieces, to gain more space for his remaining pieces. So this is why we are gonna retreat with the bishop. Bishop e3 is a paradoxical move. But you know, you can always trade the bishops whenever you'll feel it's the right time. I'll show you some lines, just the typical ideas. It's super easy. Yeah, it's the best move. I believe so. You can check it. Everyone from the world elite, I believe even Magnus Carlsen has played this. Everybody knows bishop e3. I mean, those who have studied this, they know that this is the best move. So black typically plays one of the three plans. Let's start with the most unpopular. So the most unpopular plan is to play f5. Something like f5. I'm not sure at which moment. But again, you already remember the principle. If your opponent is playing f5, you just take it. I mean, don't defend it. Just take it. So take on f5, and there you go. You have a very easy plan. Position one rook on e1, one rook on d1, and play at the right time, knight d5, targeting these pawns. How you are gonna execute it, it's up to you. But the plan is super easy. Of course, don't miss any tactical ideas. Something like, if I don't know even how it's possible for black knight position it on f5, some bishop h6, but yeah, here it's not possible. So that is the least popular plan. The second plan is like an alternative plan. He could try to play bishop e5. Bishop e5 is already linked with a clear plan. He wants to play e6 and queen h4. But again, it's a very easy threat to parry. What we want to do here is we are making the traditional normal looking moves. So something like rook d1. We want to position the bishop here. Maybe we'll be thinking about g3, bishop g2, and f4. Maybe. I just said maybe. But typically the bishop goes on f1. And again, if you're watching at this position, can you please say active pawn plans for black? Let's switch the position. A lot of strategy is based upon the fact that for black it's extremely difficult to move these pawns by not creating weaknesses. I mean, b7 and b5. Just forget it. It's not gonna work. I mean, you don't even need to play a2, a4. a5, a4. Just play b3, b4. And the pawn on a4 is gonna be weakness. Yeah, but exactly, Alberto, b4. So what else? f5. You just take on f5. E file, d file is gonna be in white's favor. What else, right? So again, a lot of plans, they revolve around moving forward the pawns. White can move a lot of pawns. He can play at the right time, although I would refrain this. f3, f4 is one plan. a3, b4 is the second plan. There's, by the way, also an idea to play h4, h5. There are many ways how white can advance forward the pawns, but most important thing is, with having the perk of space advantage at his side, he can improve this position much better than opponent who is struggling. Again, we remember, black would love to trade the dark square bishops. He would love to trade queens and play at the right time knight c5 and a4. You mean knight f6 and bishop e4? Yeah, but if it's a sacrifice, probably not so much. I mean, if white at some point is forced to play f3, f4, yeah, then maybe bishop takes on c3, maybe the pawn is under attack on e4. So this is why probably I would recommend to you not to rush with this f3, f4. Okay, now let's go back to this position, bishop e5. I would suggest not to rush with your decision. Just play rook d1. If your opponent, again, is playing f5, take on f5. Change the plan. It's not really a tempo's position. Just take on f5 and just play something like rook e1, rook d1, or maybe, yeah, maybe here specifically f5, f4, you need something reckon with. Maybe you can actually play something like f4. f4, bishop goes, rook e1, rook d1, prepare at some time knight f3, bishop f3, knight d5. Those pawns are super weak. So typically, if black is playing bishop e5, yeah, the difference is that you don't want to position rook on e1 if the e file is closed. So here, maybe it's possible. I mean here, bishop e5. You know, maybe there's no big difference, but I do believe that I'm playing rook d1 to meet the following move, because bishop e5, it's like a signal. He's signaling he's going to play e6, because he cannot play e6 immediately. The pawn is under attack. I mean, okay, technically he can. My knight is under attack here. Yeah, so actually he could play immediately e6 and then play the next move, bishop e5. But bishop e5 is sort of more tricky because he is not still played the move with the pawn, and the worst case of scenario, he can still choose a different continuation, like the classical idea of knight c5, queen b6, queen b4, maybe f7, f5. So playing immediately bishop e5 is more tricky. He keeps himself a lot more options. So this is why I'm going to play rook d1. I want to play rook c1, or maybe rook b1, it doesn't really matter at this moment. And black plays e6. Maybe I mixed up. Maybe here particularly there's already some f4. Oh, this I don't recognize, because I'm showing everything I'm showing to you. This is all from memory. So, but here the idea was, I know computer typically is recommending some bishop f1. Here is a classical idea. This is the only trick that black is threatening. Now, this is quite important to know, because, I mean, you might actually fall into this if you wouldn't know this. You just know you have to play rook d1, you have to play bishop f1. So your opponent is playing like this, you position the bishop f1, you prepare g3, and here suddenly you don't want to play h3 because you're weakening a lot of squares, and g3, queen f6 is a classical threat. It's a classical trap. Yeah, so that's a double attack, and you are losing some material here actually. So this is why, I mean, computer says something else. I've came up with a paradoxical solution. if your opponent has already played e6, now you can trade the bishops. I know it's funny, right? I mean, we played bishop e3 a couple of moves ago. But now I do see this weakness on d6. The bishop on e5 is protecting that weakness. So I think now it's really a great time to trade this bishop, because we have a new target. We have this pawn on d6, which was not available before. So this is why I do recommend to play here. Quite paradoxical. And if you would be watching Grandmaster's game, probably it would make almost no sense to you, right? I mean, how is this possible? Why just play bishop e3 a couple of moves ago, and now he is already going back? So what is this, right? Yeah, so the idea is that black has played e7, e6. And let's say black would play something here. We don't rush taking on e5, because he's going to take with the d pawn, take a good care of some central squares. Yeah, this is my idea. You know, when I was analyzing this, I came up with this idea. Maybe somebody else has been using this. I know computer saying something else here. Computer is suggesting, I think, g3. Yeah, g3, bishop f1, bishop g2, maybe f4 at some time. I mean here. Yeah, after e6, I think g3 is the top choice of computer. G3, but then again, it jumps under some f5, and wasn't really clear if I can actually recommend this for somebody else. So yeah, I came up with this idea, of this paradoxical idea, to trade the bishops, but only if black is going to take himself. I don't want to take on e5. I don't want to allow him to take with the d pawn, because I need his pawn on d6 so that I can target it. So black would play something like here. Whatever, I don't know, maybe rook d8, rook d2. We are going to patiently prepare a rook d1, g3, bishop f1, f4, and he's going to have to take on d4. Anyway, very easy. So again, black is going to take at some time. Knight c5. Here, some threat of e4, e5 is incoming. Too many overloaded pieces. See, so he is going to have to play this, and in the best scenario, we are going to drive out this knight from d4, and if it jumps here, we want to reach this position. So one more final note about this position I'd like to mention. If you want to play this for the win, don't trade queens. Why is that? Because if we trade the queens, the king easily protects the pawn on e7. With the queens on the board, this maneuver is impossible. So we can try to increase the strength, targeting this pawn by the means of something like rook d3, queen d2, I like Hein's gun, or maybe rook d3, rook d2, queen on d1 perhaps, or maybe position the queen somewhere here, maybe position queen here, play a3, b4, b5, I mean, just find your way. But I think the rule is this, that you should try to keep the queens on the board so that the king cannot freely go to e7 and defend this weakness on d6. And again, black has no counterplay at all. So where can he play? I mean, where's his game plan? a4, b4. b5 is impossible, forget it. f5. Yeah, maybe f5, but f5 again creates a weakness. And again, we remember, if black plays f5, we take on f5. So we just take it. So more weaknesses, and f4. Bishop f3, these are weaknesses, weaknesses, weaknesses. Black has absolutely no counterplay, and then he's suffering. This is what's happening. Yeah, I don't know, maybe he just sits and waits, but you know, from a good player's perspective, this is a tragedy if you are forced to sit and do nothing, because everybody wants to do something, right? Here, I don't know, king g7, bishop f1, here. I could try to position the rook here, maybe queen here, or okay, that's already winning the pawn, because queen a5, rook d6, that's a double threat. So how to defend here? I don't know, maybe actually rook d3 already wins something by the force. Rook d7, queen d2. Okay, let's imagine if somehow black even manages to hold it. Ah, wait a second, cannot I take it? Oh, rook d8, some compensation. Not really, but not really, but okay, this is sort of still playable. But let's imagine we are not taking this pawn. There's also g3 and bishop h3. How do you defend against this threat? Super difficult. So something like a 5 again. Now we take on a 5. Takes, maybe queen jumps to h6. This is a weakness. Bishop h3 joins the game. Very difficult. I'll show you one game. I think I... Oh, wait a second. I need to find this. I need to find this game. I had a very lovely game. Exactly in this line against my friend. Kveinys, who unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. And he was a very nice guy, strong GM. This would not be possible if the queens were off the board. If we would trade the queens, we wouldn't have this possibility. f4 is weakening. About which position are you saying f4 is weakening? Taste your loss. I do not understand. Yeah, of course you want to get the bishop in your game. You mean here, somewhere here. Let's say, of course I can still take the pawn immediately, but let's say here. Or about which position are you referring to? In general, you know, I would say like this. I prefer to start with f3, but the fact is that if I've played f3, it doesn't mean I'm not gonna play f4. It doesn't mean like that. I play f3 for the reason to protect the pawn on e4, to stop the knight g4 threat, and to limit my opponent's possibilities for an active play. It doesn't mean the pawn is gonna stay on f4 forever. And as soon as black plays some sort of f7, f5 ideas, a very common idea is to take on f5 and push yourself f3, f4, fixing those pawns. So that's the, maybe I should have explained it more carefully. For example, something like here. Something like here. So if black would be pressing the immediate idea of f5 here. So again, we remember the rule. We take on f5, take, and I did not even specifically mention this because I didn't want to confuse you. Yeah, there is this idea to play also f3, f4. f3, f4, the idea position one rook here, the second rook here, or maybe start with the bishop f3, but it does give up the e4 square. So I just wanted to make it more simple and not mess up with you. But you're not obliged to do this, but this gives black some kind of ideas to play f4, knight e5, e6, but still he's worse. He's worse. Yeah, and this bishop joins the game somewhere here. Obviously, you want to include the bishop on e2 somehow in the game. And you know, it's quite paradoxical, right? It might seem the bishop on e2 does nothing, right? It does nothing. It is the most terrible piece. Yeah, right now, yeah, it's the most terrible piece, but it's gonna be one of the best pieces later. It's these pawns, they're not fixed. If we would have the pawns, black pawns on e5, f4, g3, c5, b4, yeah, I wouldn't argue with you. Yeah, that's a terrible bishop on e2. This is a temporary problem. You can easily fix it by playing at the right time, f4, bishop f3, at the right time. And this is gonna be a great bishop. Yeah. Okay, I wanted to show you this game. Where is it? Yeah, here it is. Here it is. I play myself Maroczy Bind, so it's not like I'm suggesting something which I don't play. What I'm recommending, this means this is my repertoire. I'm always showing what I play. Again, the Maroczy Bind. So I'm with white. I played it 2 years ago. 3 years ago, with Aloysius Kveinys, a grandmaster from Lithuania, well-respected chess coach and GM, a very nice guy he was. I believe he passed away in 2018. And yeah, again, now you recognize this idea that we don't want to trade the bishops, because black would love to trade and play queen b6 and use one of the ideas which I described before. a5, b3, we recognize the idea. Okay, knight c5, rook b1. This I didn't show you yet. So he started with knight c5. Yeah, knight c5. I'm going to show you very shortly this idea of queen b6, queen b4 and how to meet it. But here specifically he played bishop e5. So bishop e5, this is already, yeah, the main line I'm going to show. I'm not forgetting this. So here he played bishop e5. It's already a red flag. Wait a second. He is going to play e6. So again, I don't want to make any committal decisions. So I make a normal move. Rook d1. I meet his e6. So he played e6 and I change my plan. Now I'm ready to trade the bishop. This is my game. Yeah, bishop f1 and g3, that's the classical idea. But again, don't blunder bishop h, queen h4 and queen f6 idea, which I showed you a couple of minutes ago. Yeah. So queen f6, and again, we don't want to take on e5 ourselves. If we do this, he gains a very nice control of the dark squares. It's not what we want. We want to target this pawn on d6. So after queen f6, what happened? I play queen e3. If he would take, so now it's the question you, if he would take, what you would take on d4? Can you answer that? Of course, the rook, not the queen, not the queen. But if you wouldn't have this knowledge, how would you decide? Because queen d4 is super normal, right? We want to keep queens on the board, because again, if I would take with the queen, he could. Oh, wait a second. Oh, wait a second. No, actually, he could do this. I actually wronged myself. I wanted to show you that he manages to play king f8 and king e7 in time. Here specifically, he can actually do this. Yeah, but anyway, we don't want to trade queens. Sorry for the confusing part. Yeah, but what happened here is he played here. I took on e5. And why is that? Because the knight is on c5 under attack. I force him to take with the queen, not with the pawn. And now I easily double the pawns. Double the rooks. Bishop f1, g3, easy stuff. Bishop g2. And black is already pretty much powerless. He has absolutely no game plan here. He is very passive. So he did position the king on e7 because the threat of g3, f4, it's in the air. This pawn is under attack. How do you defend against it? And maybe at the right time, e4, e5, the pawn, the knight is going to be under attack by the queen. So this is why he brought the king to e7 despite the fact the queens are on the board. King h1, f4, a little tactic, not really difficult. And black can essentially resign. So where did he make a mistake? I don't know. I believe it was simply a bad plan. Maybe a couple of inaccuracies along the road. So the king is stuck in the center. We have a lot of heavy pieces on the board. So I won the game. So I won a rather nice game. Okay, now we should go back probably to the classical plan. You mean analyze this position? I mean, it's not really that important. It's strategically winning for white. It's a very strong attack. No, I'm running a low-level engine, low-depth engine, always running in the background. So I'm sort of checking it if I'm not blundering anything immediately, but I'm never using it as a real advice. Yeah, no, it's not gonna tell you. It's not gonna tell you. Maybe it's gonna tell that black made a mistake, something like. It's already +2. Here it's +3. It's not really that significant because the position is already bad to start with. Yeah, black misplayed simply the opening. There is no one clear mistake. Maybe this was inaccuracy here. Queen f6. Queen f6 was an inaccuracy, but by no means it was a losing move. It was just an inaccuracy. I forced him to position the queen here, and it jumped under g3, f4, and the pawn on d6 became super weak. Is it obvious from afar? No. I mean, queen f6 is a super normal looking move, right? Anyway, let's go back to the main stuff. So knight c5. So this is the classical idea. Black wants to play queen b6 and queen b4. And we are going to meet it accordingly. So rook b1, removing the rook from this diagonal. Again, if black would play something like bishop e5, watch out. Most likely, he's going to play e6, queen h4, queen f6 this trick. So you already probably, if you want to follow my advice, you should be happy to trade the bishops after he plays e6, not before. Because if you trade the bishops, he's not going to play e6. I hope you understand this. So he plays queen b6, rook f to c1. This is a very important maneuver. Queen b4. So the threat is black wants to play a5, a4. That is his big threat. You have to recognize the threat first. So this is why we are positioning the rook on c1, not on d1. Again, something like here, queen b4, right? We don't want to trade queens. We don't want to trade the dark square bishops. So this already should be like a hint for you, what you are doing right or wrong. Okay, so here specifically, I suggest to play rook f to c1. a4 is impossible because you're going to play b4 and you're going to win the game. So this is why black blocks the weakness, not the weakness, but the square on b4. Use the body, and then he wants to push a4 so that you don't have access to b4. Now we want to do, we play rook c2 with a threat, queen c1, a3, b4, and win the game. That is the threat. He cannot push a4. He's too slow. Knight e5. The queen is under attack. It's not guarded by the pawn. Take. And very important, intermezzo check. You're winning the game. So black, if he wants to push a4, he needs to prepare this. Yeah, intermezzo. Italian word, I believe, right? But it's so common already in chess, right? Intermezzo. Intermediate, yeah, that's the English word. Yeah, the queen is not Italian, I think so, yeah. Yeah, so rook f to c8. So the idea is that now black wants to play a4 because knight e5, knight e7 is not going to be possible because of the king f8. And you're going to lose the pawn, lose the knight. Yeah, I understand your concern. It's all about nuances, right? But I think it's quite important you recognize all of these three ideas. Of course, if your Zwischenzug, okay, yeah, maybe Zwischenzug, yeah, I've not really used it. That's German, yeah, not really used it. But why I think this is important, you recognize these ideas, and if you're going to play against a skilled player, it is possible he's going to try to trick you. He's going to like try one idea, try a second idea. Your goal is try to understand if your initial plan still works. So here the idea, black played rook f to c8 to push a4. We can play queen c1, threat and play a3, b4, and he has to retreat. Queen b6, because otherwise he is already risking to lose this. Yeah, it might seem, okay, yeah, the question was, yeah, the rook is feeling stupid on c2. I do agree. But what about the queen on b4? What's it doing there, right? I mean, the whole idea was to position the queen on b4, to push a5, a4, use the body of the queen on b4, not to allow b3, b4, moving past the pawn on a4. Here, specifically, it's already a threat, a3, b4, and black is going to lose a queen. I'm sorry, not queen, but a piece, because of the spin. So he does something careless. Here, this is a game. Thank you for the game. So here, he plays queen b6. He tries to employ a funny idea. I've seen this. I believe the most famous game amongst Rapid and Blitz games were Magnus Carlsen with white against, maybe, yeah, maybe it was Gadir Guseynov. Now that I'm now thinking about this. So queen b6. No, 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 no. He is never in time. I told you. Here is knight d5. We have the intermediate Zwischenzug, whatever. No, no, no. The rook is still on a fate. Rook is still on a fate. It's all about making it on time. So this is why your opponent is playing rook f to c8. He is threatening to play a5, a4. Okay, I see it. So now you play queen c1. You want to play a3, b4. But you know, I'll tell you honestly. I mean, this is a GM level. I think so, at least, because this is how I'm playing this. If you are seeking for a simpler play, nobody is forcing you to do this, right? Probably you can do something more simple. You could do something like your opponent is playing knight c5. Maybe here just play, I don't know, rook d1, rook c1. But your opponent is going to use this idea of queen b4, a4, and most likely you're going to be slightly struggling. Yeah, so knight d5, he's going to take, you're going to take with the c pawn. By the way, this is still a normal position for you. Why not? It's completely playable. Maybe it's even better for white. I just recommending this, what I know, which is the most annoying way for black to meet. I've been playing this myself. I'm not recommending something which I'm not playing. Yeah, thank you, Albert. I appreciate it. So here, after queen b6, I'm sorry, knight c5, we're gonna start with rook b1. I believe that's accurate. We're still checking, which, I mean, of course, it is entirely possible. Your opponent is gonna start with bishop e5, then queen b6, then e6. He could try to trick you, make a different order of the moves, or start with queen b6, then push f5. So you need to really work with this and recognize the ideas in this line and choose the appropriate continuation, because I cannot cover every single possible line. So you just recognize the ideas and you find to work your way around it. So here queen b6, here, or maybe rook f to c8 is more tricky. Yeah, maybe actually this is more tricky, rook f to c8. Not immediately queen b4, because queen b4 is already, I'm showing you, the idea is to push a5, a4. And still you play rook c2. It's paradoxical, isn't it? So let's say queen b4, queen c1, queen b6. So the idea is to position the queen on a fate, h5, king h7, and bishop h6. It might seem, what is this, right? But this is the game Magnus Carlsen against Gadir Guseynov, if I'm not mistaken. This is what they played. This queen d8, queen f8, h5, king h7, and bishop h6. There's nothing better for black, because he is essentially a sitting duck. I mean, he's doing nothing. You can improve your position here. g3, bishop f1, king h1, bishop g2, queen d2, f4. I mean, maybe not f4. There's so many ways how you can improve your position. How can you improve this for black? His pawn structure is static. f5, you just take on f5. e6, you just trade the duck for a bishop. So again, I believe this is really a very powerful system against this Maroczy Bind, against various accelerated or hyper-accelerated dragons, because I mean black is pretty much sitting without a real game plan. And the simplest plan I was gonna recommend to you here after queen, I'm sorry, whose move it is? Yeah, bishop f1, queen goes here. Now I suggest to play it out patiently, let him go to f8, position the bishop on g2, reposition your pieces, and at the right time you can simply switch to a kingside attack, because the king is feeling not really great. Obviously, again, this is quite some deep stuff. GMs have been playing this. And yeah, yet again, to answer this question, why this is not really that a popular line today, because black is not playing this. This is quite an annoying system. There is one line which is quite a popular today. I mean, not really that popular, but it's still being tested. I'm gonna show it to you. Let me try to find this. I think I have it. Okay. Okay. This is the game between Lanier, Dominguez, Perez, and young Christoph Duda. The previous World Rapid Championship. So again, yeah, in the World Rapid Championship they do play it, because it's sort of perhaps easier to play. Yeah, I see Alberto. Yeah. So again, let's follow the line. Look at this, what Dominguez Perez is doing. Of course, Maroczy Bind. Yeah, so this early knight takes on d4. This is the idea, to gain access to immediate a5. And look at this. Dominguez Perez is playing exactly according to my recommendation. I mean, not according to my recommendation, but he is playing how I'm recommending. So he is meeting a5 with b3. Again, I did tell you this idea to play a5, b3, and black is not in time to play a4. So knight a4 obviously is not gonna be great. B takes is something I don't want even to discuss. And b4, there is no knight e4 because we have a pawn on f3. So again, look at this. So Duda was trying to play it out really tricky. So he played knight f6 without developing the bishop on g7. He took early d4, he played d6, and very accurate f3, bishop e3, very accurate queen d2. And now there is quite a popular line. Young Christoph, he played queen f5. So one idea which I told you about was the classical line. Bishop d7, bishop c6, a5, knight d7, knight c5, and so on and so forth. But here actually our bishop has already retreated to a3, so there is no reason to move it to d4 and then just to retreat to a3. So after queen a5, this already signals that black wants to play bishop e6, rook f to c8, and something like a6 b5. That is quite a sound strategy. Yeah, so rook c1, it makes sense to remove this rook from the long diagonal so that we can play b3 without worrying about any knight e4 ideas. Yeah, so rook c1, bishop e6, b3. Yeah, it might feel slightly dangerous for you, right? Because white feels underdeveloped. He is essentially 2 tempos behind. How can black use this? The position is closed. I mean, there is no breakthrough in the center. So rook f to c8, still, here, a6. I believe this is a theoretical position. And after a6, black wants to play b5, take, and I believe the strategical idea, there was some ideas to sacrifice on c3, knight e4, the bishop joins the action, so you really need to watch out for this. What is my mouse doing? Yeah, so this is why knight a4 is quite a popular plan, threatening to play knight b6, take with the king, knight e7, and g4. A lovely idea. So white is playing for a space advantage. So we want to play something like g4, maybe h3, f4, f5, maybe h4, h5, double the rooks, and again black is quite passive. In the particular game, young Krzysztof Duda, he played a very rare move, which I haven't analyzed this. He played rook c to b8. Yeah, it makes sense. The main move here is f5, still f5. Nothing has changed. And again, you remember the principle. If black plays f5 in Maroczy Bind, what should you do? You take with the e-pawn, right? Yeah, exactly. E takes, G takes, and there are many high-level games in this line. Well, you know, I'll tell you honestly, I have not really followed the theoretical developments here. These guys, they do. Yeah, they played it in 2019 World Rapid Championships. Yeah, it's more relaxing there, yeah. Yeah, and I believe the main move here is h3, and you can try to, again, use this e file for your advantage. Something like h3. I wish I would remember what was the theory here. Yeah, I just don't. I mean, it's been some time when I checked this. So in the particular game, young Krzysztof Duda, he played rook to b8. Maybe it was improvising move, maybe it was preparation. Okay. So the game ended with a like this. Oh, wait. It wasn't like this. Knight c3. There was some perpetual, which I have overwritten. Knight c3. Okay, I did not check this. I overwrote the stuff. But anyway, there is still some chance for white to aim for advantage. He can play knight d5, take with this pawn, have two bishops, and just use the space advantage to his favor. So black is suffering again. If black is playing this and he wants to play for the win, so I would recommend for black to play something else. So yeah, this bishop e6 whole approach is entirely possible, but again, for white is super easy stuff. Here, bishop, okay, maybe queen a5. If black starts with something like bishop e6, position the rook here, maybe something like a6, play b3, not to miss any b5 ideas. So he could try to do something else. I don't know, maybe not queen a5, maybe rook c8. But again, I mean, you just set up a typical Maroczy bind. You play bishop e2. You're not in rush. b5 is not there. So what should black do here? I'm actually clueless, really. Something like queen c7. Short castle. Here. And now you can think about some f4 ideas. Or maybe just play rook d1, bishop f1, g3, bishop g2, maybe instead of the bishop g2, I don't know, but rather annoying for black. Okay, this was quite important, and I believe, let me check it if I did not miss anything from the Maroczy binds. I want to show you also the rising positions in the Moscow variation, Sicilian Najdorf Moscow variation. Very quickly, it's going to be the same. And if I'll have the time, I'll show you also some examples from different lines, which also feature the Maroczy bind. Why it's such a great weapon and so important to recognize this. Okay, what's a federated level? So let me check it. So e for c5, knight f3 here, bishop b5 again, going back to the you know, not really. I mean, it is slightly a different Maroczy bind. Not always, because it really depends how your opponent is playing. Because after bishop b5, he can play knight d7. He can play knight c6. There's not going to be any Maroczy bind. Although, by the way, you can still play c4. I've played some games like this, still insisting on the Maroczy bind. I'm not going to tell you about these nuances today. Yeah, of course it is possible, of course. Although there is a more tricky, if you really want to do super advanced stuff, You can play bishop a4 first. Yeah, there was this very popular move some years ago with the idea of after a6, now white plays c4. Yeah, because black is not going to play a6. Yeah. Okay, don't worry about this too much. You don't need really this. But the point is, where is a classical Maroczy Bind? Is that after bishop b5, bishop d7, take with the queen, and now there is this idea of c4. c4. Okay, knight c6 is not a mandatory move, but the rising position is essentially the same. And I described this a rising position quite in detail in my database for modern chess against Anti-Najdorf. So pretty much the idea is the same. You want, if your opponent is playing g6, again that's rather important, if your opponent is playing g6, you want to position the bishop on e3, not retreat with the knight, keep it on d4. Do not miss any knight g4 ideas. Let's say castle, castle, or maybe start with b3. Magnus Carlsen has played it more than once. Yeah, f3, b3, but here it's not so simple. It's really quite a fine positional struggle because for black it's easier to play a6, b5. The light square bishops, they're missing. We have traded them. So typically this is what black is doing. He is trying to play either a6, b5 or sometimes e6, d5. Yeah, because we have exchanged the bishops. And something like, let's say a6. So we don't want to allow to trade on d4, bishop d4, b5. So here I recommend to play queen d3. Stop this for the time being. Yeah, and here was this moment which I mentioned earlier in this session with two knights on the board. If black is willing to play b5, I know in the database, in the chess-based database, quite a popular line there is to play a4. I'm not a big fan, tell you honestly, because black can rearrange e6, queen c7, knight d7, knight c5, and knight b4. With two knights for each side on the board, I try to avoid a4. That is at least my rule, which I recommend in the database which I wrote. Yeah, and of course there's a lot of lines here, so you need to watch out for this a6, b5. At some point you can actually even take on c6. It's rather interesting. For example, a black could still insist to play b5 with the idea, for example, something like castle, knight e4, bishop d4, b5. It's completely fine for white. It's not a bad position, but it's nothing special. So there is this idea, interesting idea, that you can actually take yourself on c6. I'm sorry, instead of the castle, just take on c6. B takes on c6. He is going to be a different character. Short castle, rook e1, f4. The action completely changes to the kingside. Getting queenside majority. Yes, sort of. But if black takes with the queen, now this is at least my rule. Now I play a4. So this is how I try to treat this position. So since there are no two knights on the board, he can position only one knight on c5. e6, castle. Okay, maybe I could have played it out more correctly. The rook goes here, here, here. And again, you have some chances to organize a kingside attack. And again, I don't want to trade queens. Again, this rule is the same, always the same. I'll show you one game. A very famous game. I mean, maybe not that famous. It was famous because I annotated Magnus Carlsen against Maxim Vasiliograf. How about that? Obviously, they played so many games between each other. So we are going to be witnesses how Magnus Carlsen was playing for white. Yeah, so this started again as an Anti-Najdorf. Yeah, so knight c3, g6, d4, knight e4, f3, And yeah, rook c1 on b3. You know, I don't think it really matters here. It's all about nuances. Should all you need to know, all you need to know here is a couple of tricks that. Which line was it? Knight here. Let me try to remember this. There was one tricky line here. F3 castle. Wait, wasn't it here? I'm always mixing it up. Here, here, and d5. I'm always mixing up this idea. Yeah, maybe not here. Ah, it was with the bishop on c1. Yeah, now I remember this. It was with the bishop on c1. So there is this idea that after knight d4, bishop g7, castle, castle. Now you don't have access to bishop e3. You have to play f3. And there is this drawing line. Rook c8, b3, and d5. But okay, I mean, everybody already knows this. Pretty much. Why I spend a lot of time on theoretical move? Perhaps I try to remember. I mean, I hope you're not referring to me. GMs. Maybe more like Grishik. Because Grishik says for like 1 hour. But, you know, when you're looking at Grishik, he is a perfectionist. At least I think so. And he's trying to always play the best way possible out of the opening, to get the best possible position. And I would imagine a typical thinking of a GM is something like this. I was analyzing this position 3 years ago. We had this training camp. There were these several GMs with me. We were analyzing this. I had this position. What was in that line? I think so. And in some of the occasions, it works like this. So he's just sitting and trying to remember. It's not like he's clueless. Yeah, he's just thinking, what was there? What was there? I mean, because to play the chess at the highest level, it involves so many theoretical studies. You just cannot outplay your opponent just because you're such a great player, right? And you just know the positional chess so well, or you're such a great attacking player. You need to have really some solid background. But I'm talking about quite a competitive level. So imagine this. Grishik is thinking, what was there? What was there? What was there? I was analyzing this, but wait a second, there was this continuation. There was a piece sacrifice, and now he's sitting and trying to remember this. You can actually see this sometimes. Or maybe he's thinking about something else, like the famous example of Mikhail Tal and the hippopotamus, right? You never know really what he's thinking about. Maybe he's thinking about some daily routine life, I don't know. Yeah, I hope you know this joke about Mikhail Tal and the hippopotamus. What he was thinking about in a famous game against, who was it? Keres, maybe, I don't remember. Always mix it up. Okay. Yeah, so the game in question is here. This is quite a known idea, and I wanted to show you this motif that we reach. Yeah, there are many ways, obviously, how can black play this out. Typically, he wants to play a6, b5. And yeah, maybe. And here, after knight h5, this was not really a great move. So Magnus Carlsen is white and Maxim Vachier-Lagrave is black. And I think here Carlsen had a great opportunity. Yeah, this is the Moscow variation, exactly. Or the Canal, Sokolsky, however you call it. The line is changing the title all the time, as other lines as well. For example, this Pelikan variation, which was titled after Sveshnikov variation. Maybe it's going to be titled Carlsen variation because he's just started to play this for black. I mean, this Sicilian c5, knight c6. It's changing all the time, the titles. And yeah, and here he played a positional chess. Positioned the rooks on the semi-open files. And here he changed the character to position and he went on to win a nice positional game. But I wanted to show you this position is that what I think what Carlsen missed, but I'm pretty sure he considered this. To play for the checkmate, you have quite good chances to create some real threats here at the king side. So idea I'll be thinking about is f4, rook f3, Position 1 rook on e1 on f1. Watch out for the queen trades. We don't want to trade queens. Position king h1. Play a4 to stop a6 b5 because we have only one pair of knights on the board. So this means I can play a4, at least according to my knowledge, how I treat this line. With two knights, I try to avoid this, again for the reason. One knight gets to c6, the second knight gets to c5, targeting this pawn on b3. With one pair of knights, I find it to be easier to contain it. So this is when I play a4. And then you just focus on the game at the queen side. It might not seem much. Yeah, there is not so much material on the board. We have traded already 3 light pieces. But for black, it's super difficult to play this out. I mean, you can try to play this in a test game. If you just know the typical principles here for white, you don't want to trade the queens. You play for the checkmate. You play a2, a4 to stop a6, b5. And it's essentially you are the one who is playing at the king side and your opponent is sitting and watching. Okay, let me check what else do I have here. I still had some examples. Yeah, for example, there's this line, Fabiano Caruana against Gadir Gusenov. This is the line we were checking previously. Let me show it to you shortly. Again, the Maroczy Bind. Who says people not playing this? They play this year, 2020, because Gadir Gusenov plays all the time this accelerated, hyper-accelerated dragon. Again, Fabiano Caruana plays Maroczy Bind. So again, this tricky approach of knight e4. So as you can see, also Caruana plays exactly like Dominguez Perez. Same approach, not developing the bishop on e2, watching out a5, a4 idea so that we can meet b3, a4, b4. You remember this, I showed you. So this is quite a precise order of the moves. Again, quite a topical line here, b3, a6, knight a4, takes, takes, knight e7, g4, which I mentioned to you before. And you might remember here, young Krzysztof Duda against Dominguez Perez. He played rook c to b8. Yeah, and the game ended with some quick draw. Yeah, I have not analyzed this really. But here the main line is f5. Takes, takes, g5. Yeah, I think h3 was the main move. d5 here. Yeah, and the black was trying to solve his opening problems by playing it out aggressively, and in the end he just lost a pawn for some sort of a compensation. But it was an online rapid game after all, and Fabiano won the game. Yeah, so this line is quite popular. Somebody asked me before why it's not being played. It is being played. It's not just black doesn't play this. Because of the, I believe, Maroczy Bind. That's the reason. Okay. Let me check what else do we have here. Yeah, let's check the Maroczy Bind from different angles. We could have it from different lines as well. For example, there is a very old game by Mikhail Botvinnik. He played this game in 1932. Can you imagine this? 90 years ago, 88 years ago. He was playing with black, and you'll recognize instantly the Maroczy Bind. So it's also possible from the black side. Here, here, knight c6. Okay, I mean, obviously white needs to play knight c3 or d4. Yeah, and he allowed for black to set up the classical Maroczy Bind. Let's see what happens if white, or I mean your opponent who has met the Maroczy Bind on the board, he has no clue what to do. I mean, these guys were playing in 1932, and his opponent, Georgi Lisitsyn, pretty much he was improvising on the board. He had no big knowledge here. So let's check what Botvinnik was doing. Yeah, so knight obviously is better positioned here on c3, not on d2. f6, you recognize the pattern. Yeah, we strengthen the center. It doesn't mean the pawn is going to stay on f6 forever. We just fix this pawn on e5. I mean, bishop f6 is a typical amateur move. I mean, this is a bad move. The bishop is clearly misplaced on f6, but you know, I can completely understand this. It's paradoxical. You might ask, I mean, my bishop on e7 is not doing anything, so at least it's doing something on f6. It's not doing on f6 anything. It's actually not protecting the pawn on c5. It's not protecting against the a3, b4 threat. So bishop f6 is a wrong move. I've seen this number of times being played. Yeah, better choose f6. f6, limiting the activity of these knights. So white played some normal looking move, bishop e3 here. Supposedly now he was concerned about b5 and he played a4. And now we stop at this moment. And now again I ask yourself, let's switch the position from white's perspective. Can you please propose me an active game plan for white? You'll recognize, again, an active game plan involves moving the pawns. Here, the pawns, they're not moving. b2, b4, forget it. a4, a5, with what threat? e3, d4, it's never going to work. f2, f4, yeah, knight f to d2 and what? That's the problem. I mean, white, it is white who is suffering here. He is not having a space advantage. He is cramped. Let's check how the game progressed. So he played queen d2. Yeah, Botvinnik plays b6 to stop any a5 ideas with b5. He recognizes the idea, although seemingly the bishop on e7 is so bad. Don't worry about the bishop on e7. It's not yet time to think about it. So Botvinnik just continues gradually improve the position. And this is a great move by a great master. King h8. Yeah, that you can afford to make such a quiet move. Here. Okay, knight c7, maybe that was not really that necessary. So he continues to maneuver here and there. And at the right time, he switches the action to the pawn on e2. White figured out nothing better to do for him. Yeah, bishop f8. I think also, Alberto, that was a rather reasonable choice. So here, black finally played knight e4, white took it, and now black simply switches all of his attention to this pawn on e2. Here. Now there's bishop f8. Now all of the rooks go here. Now he trades this bishop. Improves his own dark square bishop first. Very accurate, very careful, slow game. And at the right time, there's a sacrifice on e3, which decides the game. I mean, okay, of course, white completely misplayed the position. He was way passive. Yeah, it's a great game. It's Lisitsyn against Botvinnik. I didn't even know this game before. I mean, when I was checking various interesting games of our great ancestors, then I noticed this one. He completely crushed him. Here. Yeah, queen f4 was already a sad necessity because there was a knight f2 threat incoming with queen g3. And yeah, and we can again look at the starting position. If we were white player, we would need to recognize this, that our opponent, yeah, king h3, queen e6, I think so, maybe. And here we would recognize this, that our opponent wants to set up the Maroczy Bind. So again, this might not only favor for you when you are the one who is setting up the Maroczy Bind. This would also be quite a useful knowledge when you are the player who is playing the other side, who recognizes your opponent wants to do against you the Maroczy Bind. So you don't want to allow this. I mean, I'm telling you this from my experience and from the experience of other GMs who have played this. It's really, if I did not convince you in these 2.5 hours, I don't know. I think those ideas are still very much alive. So Botvinnik found this in 1932. So, and people still today recognize the power of the Maroczy Bind. Okay, in 1932, perhaps it wasn't really titled Maroczy Bind. Okay, let me check. And I'll show you one more interesting example. Very interesting. This game is not in the database. It's my game. I played this in tournament in France, Cannes, a very beautiful city in France. I don't know what's the reason why it's not in the database, because the organizers apparently, organizers apparently did not send the games to the database, but I have all of those games, and I play this with black. And let's check this position. It's gonna be English opening, some weird G3 stuff. Anyway, a classical English, right? Nothing special. You can reach this position by playing c4, e5. Maybe I should have showed you a more common way, like this. Here, this is the classical. G3, pretty much people don't play like this anymore, at least at the top level. Whatever is the move here. So essentially going to be the same. The structure is going to be the same. I was already aiming for more. You know, answering your question, I was aiming for more. I just didn't get it. I mean, I played the most active moves. I played e5, d5, what else? I mean, how to play even more active. But it's not easy. It's not so easy. Yeah, d3, it's super solid. Okay, maybe technically here I could have played something else. Instead of this, I could have played... Yeah, here specifically the question, why didn't I play d4? There is a move b4. This is a known trick. So I allowed him to take on d5 and switch to the English opening. Yeah, bishop b4 is the idea of a knight e5. But okay, that's not the topic of today. Queen a4 is incoming. Okay, I mean, I could have played differently, but I just want to show you the position. So we switched to the classical English. So he made some normal moves. Knight e4. Now here against some kind of a dragon position, knight e4 makes sense, right? We don't have the pawn on c5. Remember, I mentioned you this from the white's perspective. If black would have the pawn on c5, then knight e4 would make zero sense. So then he would be interested to trade the knights and play something like bishop c3, knight d2, and maybe we can employ the same ideas from black's perspective. So here the game progressed like this. He made a weird move, rook e1, doesn't matter. I was fighting for space advantage. Here, 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 here. And now I'm gonna show you this position from white. Do you recognize the threat? Black just played knight c6 to e7. What are you gonna do about it? So it's obvious black, I played this position as black. It's obvious black is aiming for a Maroczy Bind. The knight on c6 wasn't doing much anyway. I mean, I could have played, of course. I could have played here knight d4. I mean, why not? Knight d4 takes, and he would do something, I don't know, maybe e3 takes. This is something else. Yeah, it's probably completely playable. But let's pay attention to this move. h6 more sensible than f6. It's a completely different setup. Yeah, I mean, technically it's still Maroczy Bind. I'm always being an f6 player. Yeah, instead of the h6. It's a different position, slightly different ideas. b4. No, not really b4. But if you wouldn't pay attention to this, what would happen here? You know what? This guy, he played super chess here. He achieved the GM norm in this tournament. I played against Buscara. Yeah, I think he is EM. Maybe now he's a GM, I don't know. We played this game in 2018. He's a player from France. 400 something. Maybe through 350 he was something. I don't know. But he played really well because he recognized the idea. For example, if white would play a3, I just play c5, c5, knight c6, a4, knight a5. I'm completely pressing. And again, for white, the question is, where's your game plan? Where's your active plan? Where's your thrust in the center? Where do you move with the pawns? Your pieces are positioned nicely. Yeah, but how do you play actively? So he recognized the idea, and it was rather funny that here he played e4. It was a great move, but it's a great sequence of moves. After knight b4, now I just need one more move to completely crush him. But I'm not going to get it. So bishop b4 and d4. That's the idea. So white sacrifices the pawn. He recognizes the threat of the Maroczy Bind. So he already played something else. And the idea was, after e takes on d4, to play e5. He is super active. Pieces are active. Knight d4 is a positional threat because the rook is hanging. So in the end, I figured out that actually I cannot really take on d4. Yeah, a tactic theme. But here I actually played after d4, I played c5, which was a great reply. Yeah. So, and he cannot really take anywhere here because he is having a worse endgame after double trade and take on a2, so the game progressed like this. But I mean, anyway, this is not already Maroczy Bind. I just wanted to show you that both of us, we perfectly understood the power of the Maroczy Bind, the arising positions, and white very nicely identified the arising problem. He didn't want to be like Botvinnik's opponent in the previous game, which I show you. He's going to be completely crushed in a slow manner, so he better went for an active way and did not allow his opponent to set up the Maroczy Bind. Yeah, knight c8, knight d6, this is what I tried in the game. Yeah, something like this. This is the game, and yeah, I misplayed it. I made a draw, but I was pressing for a long time. Yeah. Okay. Let me check. Maybe there's something else. I'm pretty sure I forgot something. Yeah, because it's impossible. It's impossible to tell everything by not forgetting some stuff, right? But I believe that was pretty much the core idea. So you can meet this Maroczy Bind in several setups. Maybe you can meet it playing with black, for example, like this line. Let me check it. Something like, let's say, knight f3, c5, g3, knight c6. So I'm already thinking about to play e5. So this is some sort of a King's Indian reversed. Castle, knight f6, d3, d5, c4. Okay, I mean, I can still play d4, but if I play bishop e7, we reach some sort of a classical Maroczy Bind from black side. Yeah, now again we want to use the same ideas, bishop e6, castle, f6, queen d7, b6, and watch out the ideas our opponent might be using against us. Of course, I mean, white has the extra tempo. Yeah, so not always you'll get exactly the same, you would have the same as with white, but some of the ideas might still work. Probably for white it's going to be easier to push a4, a5, and queen a4, this idea. And position the queen on a4 because you won't have time to play b6. I would imagine that's the difference. So again, I mean, this is possible to play from white. I mean, why not? What else? Lines, let me check it. Other Maroczy Binds, not really that common. Yeah, mostly they do arise from either e4, c5, some early accelerated dragons, or something like c4. But again, I mean, it might be entirely possible the game starts something like, I don't know, c4, g6, d4, c5, and knight f3, for example. Although this is probably not the best way how you can play it out, because I do believe when your opponent is pushing c5, you have the pawn on d4, you should aim for a space advantage and play d4, d5. Yeah, something like this. Yeah, pretty much I think I told you most of it. E4, c5, knight f3, e6, c4. It's not going to be a Maroczy Bind. I mean, you can try this. You know what? If you want to aim for open Sicilian against the Carlsen, you can still play d4. And there is a great line after the Carlsen Khan, c4. Yeah, I used to play this quite a lot. This idea of c4. Again, some sort of a Maroczy Bind, but the dark square bishop, I don't know. If black doesn't take on d4, it's a Maroczy Bind. Probably not. I don't know what is this then. You mean here, right? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if he plays here, you play here. Well, this is not a Maroczy Bind, right? This is something else. It's just better for white. I don't know what is this. Probably it doesn't bear any official title. Yeah, but anyway, here what I wanted to mention is that takes, a6, c4. This is also a rather reasonable line. Quite good. You know, Carlsen, I think it refers to e6 Sicilian in general. Khan specifically is a6. e6, a6. Yeah. Yeah, it's some sort of Maroczy, yeah. So knight f6, knight c3, bishop e4, bishop b4, and queen d3. You might remember the game Magnus Carlsen against Viswanathan Anand, World Championship match, which year was it? 13? Game 6? Where Carlsen blundered and Anand did not notice. You remember this game? Something like knight c6, takes. What was here? Takes, e5. Unless I'm mistaken, this line was a novelty at the time. Knight d7, here. Check the database. Yeah, there was quite a famous game, and I believe in YouTube also there is this video of Carlsen blundering the idea. And endgame, no, was it endgame? Carlsen just confidently outplayed him. He just made one not careful move, and Anand could have punished him immediately by winning 2 pawns in a row. And there was quite a spectacular video about this. Somewhere in YouTube, I mean, just check Carlsen Anand game 6, something like that. And I mean, okay, I mean, I'm sort of going off topic here, but this is a quite interesting line. And if your opponent, of course, yeah, by the way, the hedgehog, of course, the hedgehog. It's also a Maroczy Bind. But it's called a hedgehog, okay. So technically it is a Maroczy Bind. So something like, let's say c4, knight f6, here, bishop e2, here. Okay, maybe I misplayed already, yeah, because there's a bishop d6. But this also is a Maroczy Bind. Yeah, so typically black plays something like d6, bishop e3, but here are slightly different ideas. So probably in order to play it out, you would need to study. Yeah, it's trickier. I mean, okay, this is obviously quite tricky stuff, so it's completely normal that you might not understand something, but I hope at least I managed to explain some core ideas that you might use this when you are the one who is setting up the Maroczy Bind, and recognize this when your opponent is trying to set up against you. So if you appear to be in a Maroczy Bind position and you are the defending side, so yeah, now just be ready what's coming, because your opponent is going to be pressing you for a long time. So watch out for any potential breakthroughs. Okay, any final questions, because this is it. I mean, I told you what I wanted to tell you about the Maroczy Bind. Never play f4. Yeah, at least maybe you'll remember something Don't trade queens, but again, no, depends on the situation. Yeah, if you gain something from the trade, then perhaps you can trade them. Never trade on d4. No, I think I told you that um, do not move the knight from d4. Yeah, knight d4, knight c2. Keep the knight on d4. Try to keep it. Watch out from knight g4 ideas. Um, maybe there's somewhere knight d5 trade as well, right? Yeah, but anyway, we were looking at so many examples. I cannot. Not always the general rules are gonna apply, but at least I hope you learned something from this. Right. Okay. So this is it. You're really great. You asked me so many questions, so I apologize if somebody was watching this and I was all the time going back. I had to show you this line and that line, and because I wanted to answer all of the questions immediately while they're fresh questions, while I still remember them. And yeah, thank you that you are my audience. Thank you that you're here with me. I hope you appreciate the content I'm trying to create here. I'm gonna be back with my boot camp. Oh, wait a second. I'll check it when I'm gonna be back because I sort of now have a summer schedule. Let me check it. Yeah, I'm gonna be back next Friday with a boot camp. Yeah, next Friday with a boot camp, and my next stream most likely is gonna be next Wednesday only, because now I'm switching to some kind of a summer graphic. I have a vacation still. A man has got to relax at some point. So next Wednesday I'll have my weekly puzzle fix show. This week I had a very special guest with me in the studio, former world FIDE champion Ruslan Ponomaryov. We sort of agreed to continue our puzzle survival solving. We tried to beat Yevgeny Miroshnichenko's survival record. I'm not sure if he even noticed this. We got to 70 and we would love to resume, but okay, we'll talk about the details. I hope he is gonna be able to join me in the next stream next Wednesday. Yeah, but apart from that, I had planned a stream on Sunday to play some Blitz. The Route to 83. Yeah, that's a nice title. Probably I should use it. I had planned to do a stream on Sunday to play some Blitz. It's in my schedule, but I am still not sure if I'm gonna make it, because I'm right now in a tournament, in a local tournament here in Latvia, so it's gonna finish on Sunday late afternoon, so I'm not so sure if I'm gonna make it. If I am, then yeah, you have to follow some updates in my channel. Right, this is it. Thank you guys again. Hope you are gonna have a great weekend, a great Friday. Have a great summer, and see you in my next streams. Thank you, and take a good care. Goodbye. Yeah, thank you.